How you doing? How you living? How you feeling, baby? Back for another episode of the Bases Loaded podcast, brought to you by the Idiots Podcast Network. We're here to keep going over our, we're doing divisions. We're really trying to figure out who's going to be the top dog in each division. Maybe are they going to hit their over-unders for wins, or are they going to not? Are they going to come a little short? So, it's going to be very interesting this season. We're going to go right into it. This episode, we are talking about the AL East. It's going to be very interesting this upcoming offseason. And, you know what? I forgot to even introduce my guest, idiot number one, Adam, baby. How you doing?
Doing good, living large, and feeling great.
Beautiful, baby. That's all I ever needed. So, we'll get right on into it, talking about our we'll go from reverse order. So the team that we think is probably going to be the worst in this division to the team that we think is going to be the best in this division. So we're very excited to bring this to you, and we'll start getting it going right now. So, for our worst overall team in the AL East, we believe it's going to be the Boston Red Sox. Now, the Red Sox, they did do a couple things this offseason. They got Yoshida from Japan, the top overall hitting prospect. Mm-hmm. They ended up picking up old man Justin Turner. They re-signed Devers. They ended up getting Adam Duvall, and that was really all they did for their lineup. They brought in Corey Kluber in their pitching staff, and they brought in a couple relievers. They brought in guys like Chris Martin and Kenley Jansen and Richard Blyer, who might be able to add a little bit of some key bullpen arms to this team.
And they also did trade for Mondesi as well from the Kansas City Royals.
Good point. I should have added him. He is going to be a valuable piece to this team. And let's not forget, James Paxton is still on the roster along with Garrett Whitlock. Now, will Garrett Whitlock play? I don't know if he's going to be able to come back in time off of hip surgery, but if he's playing, I will be intrigued to see how he does because he is a pretty decent pitcher. So, the thing that's going to be very interesting about this team is the fact that it feels very awkward to look at this roster without a Xander Bogaerts, without maybe another strong piece in this lineup.
And a big hurt that has happened over this offseason is that Trevor Story has had to get elbow surgery, and people are seeing that he might not see the field this year, and that is also a big hurt to this team. He was maybe not as good as he was on the Rockies last year, but still, that's a great piece at second base or shortstop that you want to have on this roster and that you won't have for the majority of it.
That's very true. That would have made this middle infield look really nice. Instead of having Enrique Iglesias and Christian Arroyo in your middle infield, it could have been Trevor Story and Mondesi, and I think that's something that really would have been very interesting for this ball club.
Mm-hmm.
Granted that Mondesi will be back for opening day, I believe. Should be very interesting to see how he plays. The guy's a steal machine on a team that gets no steals. So, I think that's going to be very interesting. That's definitely going to help out. Definitely make this team a little bit more versatile. Should help in the runs department with all those steals.
Yeah,
now,
they need that.
This team just feels incomplete. It feels like they're lacking something. And it's not necessarily in the power department. They have a bunch of guys who are going to be able to hit home runs, but it does really feel like they're lacking in that ability to consistently hit. I don't know how good this team is going to be. I really don't think they're going to be a high-end team, especially in the in the AL East. I think that with the way how stacked up this division is and how poor their starting pitching is, I think it's going to be a very interesting season moving forward.
Yeah, and also their starting pitching is filled with old veterans that are
unproven young guys.
Yeah, and these veterans are old and looking hopefully for just a couple more years of getting a contract, really, and these young guys who are just trying to prove something that they're not bad. So, and that's not a good combination. These young guys can learn from the old guys, but I don't know how actually good are these people going to produce for this team.
I don't know. It doesn't look good. So, Adam, I want to know, how many games did this team win last year?
Last year, the Red Sox were the only team in this division with a losing record at 78-84.
78 and 84. Well, funny enough, their over-unders at 78.5.
78.5. That is very interesting. And for me, I would kind of have to take the under. Between all the injuries and losing Xander Bogaerts, I can't see them just reaching over that number. Maybe close, but I don't think.
Look, I get Kenley Jansen was a big pickup in the pen, but this team, they still feel very incomplete. They feel like they're missing a bunch of pieces that they really need to have to be, a top dog in this division. So I'm going to hit the under on this one at 78.5. Definitely hitting the under.
Yep.
Oh, pardon me, folks. So we're going to move on to our next team in the division. And funny enough, I think this is a team that, like our 5 spot, our 4 spot, and our 3 spot really can move up and down between those spots. I think that they're very volatile in that in this ranking. I think the 1 and 2 spots are a little bit more locked up. But, our number 4 team is actually going to be the Tampa Bay Rays of all teams. Very surprising as a team that, finds a way to get the job done no matter what. I think that's a very interesting thing. They always find a way to get it done. It's weird. The Rays are always a weird team because you don't know how to rank them. You don't know how good their players really are because they're always so young. And a lot of this talent is truly unproven. I mean, Wander Franco hasn't done a lot in this league yet to truly tell me that he's worth the contract they gave him. Now, granted, he's going to be a mainstay in this lineup for a little while now. But I'm very intrigued to see the way that Wander Franco develops this year. I mean, we're going to need another comeback season from Randy Arozarena after a down year last year.
Oh, he had a really good year, I feel like, last year. He was able to...
Did he start off real bad?
No,
because I remember you gave me a lot of shit for trying to get you to pick Arozarena.
Yeah, in my fantasy, but he ended up being really good. Over 2020 season, the home runs and stolen bases hit for around, I think, 260. And had an overall solid lineup. He was easily the most important guy on this team in that lineup.
Well, he was one of the only healthy guys in this lineup
yeah, he was
last
the only
year.
guy.
That's really what it came down to.
But he had a really good season, and I hope that he does it again. I do like him on this team. But everybody else, yeah, they're young. Some of these guys are unproven, and The thing about the Rays is that, yeah, they keep finding ways to win. Ever since they made it all the way to the World Series in 2020, they've been honestly on a little bit of a very, very, very slow decline, but still a really good team because they find ways to win and they find ways to make the playoffs each year. But the thing is, I don't know how long they could keep doing that.
It gets tougher and tougher every year, especially when, they have guys like Shane Baz and Andrew Kittredge out for the season. I mean, that's going to be a very, very difficult thing to overcome because Shane Baz, obviously a high-end prospect pitcher. I mean, it would have been very exciting to see him this year. And along with Andrew Kittredge, a guy who's a proven closer for this team, those are 2 pieces they're going to miss. But if in Rays fashion, they're going to replace and replenish and really figure out a way to kind of get it done.
That's what they always can do.
The one thing I will say is that we're going to hopefully see the return of Tyler Glasnow,
yeah,
a guy who's unbelievably talented when he's been able to, be on the field. Now, if he can come back healthy and be the same Tyler Glasnow that we know of, I think this pitching staff looks a lot better, and I'm really intrigued to see how good this team will end up being because they do always find a way to get it done. And guys like Isaac Paredes are going to have to step up this year. Harold Ramirez is going to have to step up this year. I mean, they have some vets who have been here for a little while now that are really, it's time for them to kick it on and put it into full gear, like Brandon Lau, like Arozarena, like freaking Yandy Diaz. These are guys who are going to have to kick it up and really get it going if this team really wants to be one of those top-end teams this year.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, on paper, they might be the 4th worst team in this division, but they do find ways to win games and could easily move up to that number 3 spot and possibly on a good year.
The Rays have the most interesting way that they manage their front office. I will say that. It's more interesting than anywhere else in the entire league because they've somehow found a way to make it work. But what I will say is I'm excited for this team. I think they have some interesting possibilities, but I think they are going to be slightly worse than they were last year.
Mm-hmm.
So, Adam, hit me with it. What's their record sitting
Last year, they were in 3rd in the division at 86 and 76.
86 and 76?
Yep.
So their over-under for this year is actually a little surprising. It's at 89.5.
Wow, 89.5. I could see it. It's crazy that you could see both ways of this. They have great starting pitch, pretty good starting pitching, definitely at the top of it, that can win them games, but also a back end of the lineup that might lose you some games too. It's wow, this is interesting. I mean, for what we're going for and definitely what I'm thinking, I have to take the under. 90 games is a lot to win, and especially for a team that can be inconsistent at sometimes, yeah, I'd have to go with the under.
And a team that feels like they got worse this
Yeah.
past offseason, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm taking the under as well. I don't think that they're going to be able to win 90 games this year. And that doesn't mean they're not going to be a good team, but I don't think they're going to be able to win 90 games and be the Rays team we've known to love.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll move on right down the line, and we actually have the Baltimore Orioles at our number 3 spot, a team that, we're very excited to watch, a team that brings a lot of fun to baseball with how young some of these guys are, how entertaining some of these guys are. And you know what? I like their lineup. This is a team that really didn't do a lot this past free agency. They really only made their only big pickups were Adam Frazier and Kyle Gibson. I mean, they really didn't do a whole hell of a lot to make this team crazy good, because they picked up guys through the farm system is what they did. They ended up, promoting Aldi Ruxman for a full year. Gunnar Henderson has been promoted. Another guy who's been promoted is Grayson Rodriguez. They have a lot of youth, a lot of very high quality youth that really can, help propel this team into a spot that's much better than, where people think they're going to end up. Personally, I like this lineup. I know they didn't add a lot. I know they didn't lose a lot. But personally, I think this team has a lot going for it. I am excited for where they're heading, and I think that this is going to be a fun lineup.
They have a little bit of everything on their lineup that brings you joy. You got Cedric Mullins, who on a good year could really have a 2020 season, could get more than 30 stolen bases. Adley Rutschman is becoming one of the best catchers in the league. Gunnar Henderson, the top prospect. And Anthony Santander, who had a great season last year and could repeat it again this year.
Don't forget about my boy Cedric Mullins, baby. Don't forget about him.
He's really good. And
because you know what? That's a great center fielder right there. He's going to bat leadoff and do phenomenal things for you.
Yeah. And Adam Frazier is very underrated, but good pickup for this team. They needed a little veteran presence, and at that second base position, he will be producing a lot better than what they had last year.
I definitely agree. I think this is this team being so young, I think it's going to end up boding well for them. I think they'll end up being able to be a little better in the steals department this year with guys like Jorge Mateo and Mullins making a return along with some of these other very young guys like Gunnar Henderson. Hell, I think Aldi Ruxman can get a couple more steals than people expect. Just because he's young, he's got some speed, he's got a little bit of everything to him. I think this roster is really exciting. And I know it might seem underwhelming to the average eye, but I'm very excited to see where this very young team can go. And I their pitching staff, yeah, is it a little lackluster? Yes. Now, I'm really hoping to see the return of a guy like John Means to the starting rotation. Hopefully, a year off with Tommy John. I hope he's able to come back full swing, because he was the most exciting pitcher on this entire roster until he'd gotten hurt.
Yep.
So if they're able to get a guy like John Means back into this rotation, I really have a hard time seeing how this team doesn't exceed expectations again.
They everything I like about them, they love. Especially, I'm going to give a big shout out to Felix Bautista. I love this reliever, huge monster of a man, and is going to become, I believe, a really good closer in this league. And their bullpen as well is still pretty solid, with Colón Perez, Michael Givens, and Keegan Akin, who are all done pretty well in this league, and hopefully can take a step better and do a lot better. I like this team a lot. The Rays have good players, but are very volatile, and so are the Baltimore Orioles. Good players, but more or less not volatile, but need to be more consistent.
They're just a bunch of young guys in this club. They're still learning how to play baseball in the major leagues. I mean, this team is going to have to figure out really who is and who isn't MLB talent, and that's going to come quick. So I'm intrigued to see how this team plays and how it's going to play out during the season. I mean, to be honest with you, Adam, my favorite thing they did this year was take James McCann from the Mets, because we didn't need him.
He will be very useful there.
I think he will be. A nice veteran presence behind the dish that'll help out with Ruxman's career development.
Yeah.
So, Adam, I want you to hit me with what they did last year. Let me know.
Orioles were fourth in the division at 83-79.
So they are projected to be worse this year. They're projected to be 76.5 wins. So, are you taking that over, or are you taking that under?
76.
I know what I'm doing.
I'm smashing that over. I mean, yeah, maybe they did overperform last year, but they got talent. That's exactly what they have, and talent will win you games in this league. I could see them very well being an above 500 team again.
No, I definitely agree, and I'm going to be honest with you. I'm also going to take this over. Maybe it's a little hometown bias at this point, but I like where this team is going. I think they're heading in a good direction, and with the way this division is currently, I think that it gives them a lot of opportunity to be the team that they want to be and really excel and kind of do the things they need to do to be a plus wins team.
Yeah, definitely.
So look, we'll keep going on down the line to our number 2 team, and this might shock a couple people. I highly doubt it, though, if you've been keeping up with the news. But I'm putting my number 2 eggs into the Yankees basket. I don't think the Yankees are going to be the division winners this year. I really don't.
Last year was an incredible sight to see, obviously, with Aaron Judge. And their first half of the season was something you don't really see often. They were on pace to win close to 116 games on pace. That's what their pace was showing in the beginning of the season. And a lot of that had to do with Aaron Judge being so incredible, producing so much for this team. And if he ever slows down, I feel like this whole team might take a step back too. They do obviously still have a lot of good players in this lineup. Stanton could have a much better year than last year, and so could Donaldson. Two question marks, but I think could play very well. But they have also suffered a lot of injuries that could hurt them for this year.
Look, this old man baseball club really, they have a hard time staying healthy and staying on the field. There are a couple guys in this lineup I like. I mean, I like Rizzo. I love him. Judge, great player. Giancarlo Stanton will hit you home runs. Only God knows what he's going to bat, though. I mean, there's some inconsistencies throughout this lineup. Glaber's been improving year in, year out. I don't know exactly how this team is going to be. I mean, hell, they still even have DJ LeMahieu on the roster, a guy who's going to add a lot of value towards his team. But, it's just it gets a little shaky when you start to look at the injuries they've already sustained. Montas out for the season. Early injury to Carlos Rodon. He won't be ready for day one with a strained forearm. I think that's already very interesting. They've lost some guys in the bullpen like Tommy Kahnle and Lou Trevino. I don't know when they're going to be back. I hope Lou Trevino, for their sake, is going to be back sooner than later so they can at least get this going. But these are two relatively newer injuries that, may potentially sideline these guys for longer than expected. Granted, they do have a bunch of talent that they were able to retain from last year, and guys like Clay Holmes, guys like Michael King, Jonathan Loaizaga. I mean, I like their bullpen. I think it's okay. I think it's manageable. And you know what? They even I like their starting rotation.
It is
good. I think
good.
They have a very interesting starting rotation. I think Nestor's fun. I think Cervino is gonna actually come back into his form. After taking about a year and a half off, 2 years with all the Tommy John stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I Garrett Cole always ends up getting the job done. So I like their pitching staff. If they're able to end up getting back Rodon, I think that'll definitely help out. Hell, if they're even able to get Luis Gil, it's going to be nice to have at least another guy ready to go into that rotation. Now, another injury I want to talk about is Harrison Bader's already out. He's not going to start the season with the squad, and this is going to be a guy they really need in the outfield.
Yeah, you do not want to be putting Aaron Hicks back in that outfield and back in this lineup.
That's what I'm saying.
His time on this team is close to being done, and he is becoming more of a nuisance than he is of a help on this lineup.
I agree. This is just, for some reason, the Yankees can never be not hurt, and I just feel like this is going to be – I hope it's not something that really, becomes a huge issue for this team just because they have a lot of potential to be one of the better teams in the league. Now, the one thing I will say is that Judge will not hit 62 home runs again this year, right?
No.
62?
Yeah, it was 62.
Yeah, I don't believe he's going to have another 62 home run season. And that's going to be, that's no fault of Judge. I mean, that's just regression. That just happens. You're not always going to hit 62 homers
good luck
in a season.
trying to break the AL home run record.
But my big issue is just going to be the fact that, outside of Judge, we saw the team have a hard time producing runs last year.
Yep.
Is this going to be another issue where they have a hard time producing runs outside of Judge? I really hope not. Otherwise, this team is going to sit stagnant, and they're really going to be relying on pitching that hopefully isn't hurt like they already are.
Yeah, there's a lot of good things about this team, but you can see the writings on the wall of this possibly also being a disaster of a year for this team. And, hopefully it doesn't come down to just injuries, which is always tough to look at for any team.
And it's hard. You can't predict injuries. This is something that, obviously it's hard for us to factor in because we don't know when these guys are going to be back, and they don't even know when they're going to be back yet. So it's hard to factor any of that in. So many question marks. But I think this team has definitely a lot of potential to be very good, but they're one of the teams that borders on disaster at a moment's notice, which is really scary for for a team like this.
Yeah, for sure.
Very, very old squad. So, Adam, how many games did they win last year?
Yankees won the division last year at 99 wins and 63 losses.
That's very interesting because their over-unders at 94.5.
94.5. That is a perfect line for this team, I think, because on a good year,
they could win 100 games, but on a bad year, they might only win 80.
Yeah, it's kind of scary. 94.5.
Look, I'm going to be honest with you.
You
I'll
go
set you up
first for
real
this,
quick.
yeah.
I'm taking the under.
Yeah.
I think this division is going to be a little bit more lackluster than they've been in, than they were last year. I think it's going to be very interesting. I definitely think that you'll see Boston kind of be the bottom of the barrel, and I don't think you'll see the Yankees be as good as they were last year.
In my eyes, they're going to have either 94 or 95 wins. This line is really set perfectly. But if I had to be more safe, I would have to take the under on this team as well, but very close to it.
Don't be safe. Take the pick you want to take. Come on.
It is the pick I want to take.
Okay, good.
It is. But, it could go either way. Tough team to look at and really know exactly what's going to happen. So
they're probably one of the hardest teams in this league to predict right now. There's
Yeah.
just a lot of variables with the New York Yankees.
great players, but, we'll see how it pans out.
Do you know how old Jason Dominguez is yet? Is he coming up soon, or is he just going to be in that Yankees farm system till we're like 45?
Yeah, he's extremely young. I don't even know if he's hit 20 yet.
I think he was in, I believe, high A last year. I think he's going to start the year probably in double A.
He needs time. He can hit. Obviously everybody knows about his power, but he needs some more time.
I just know he's supposed to be the fucking god prospect. So
No.
I want to see if he's ever going to play baseball in our lifetime.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
All right, so we'll move on to our number one team for the for the AL East. Sorry, folks. And that's going to be the Toronto Blue Jays.
Mm-hmm.
I like this roster. I like this team. They tried to steal Nimmo from us, but they were unsuccessful. So, what I will say is, they went out there, they got a guy like Kevin Kiermaier to really handle the outfield. Brandon Belt's going to be their new DH, and they even picked up Dalton Varsho, a guy who can, play outfield and play catcher. So that'll be very interesting. Has that dual ability. So that'll definitely keep him in the lineup, keep him going. I'm excited for that. And they even have guys like Danny Jansen and Alejandro Kirk. I mean, their catcher spot is filled up. They will be good at catcher this year. So that's something that's very important. That's a very interesting position that normally lacks a lot of production. But personally, I think they'll have one of the most productive catching spots in the entire league this year. Very beneficial.
And then not to even talk about their top two guys in Vlad Guerrero and Bo Bichette. These two are obviously just going to produce numbers, home runs, stolen bases for Bo, RBIs, runs. They produce, and do such a well job at it. This is a great 1-2 punch for any lineup and any team that wishes they could have these two guys.
And this is a team that's going to end up getting a lot of steals this year. I mean, Springer can bag 10. Bichette could get 20. Vlad will have a couple. Varsho is a big stealing threat. He could get 15. Merrifield could get 20. And even Kevin Kiermaier can get 10. These are a lot of steals from a team that we don't expect to, be as such a small ball team. But really, this team can truly excel in that aspect of this game and really, shake things up a little bit. So I'm intrigued to see how that goes. But more importantly, they did a lot of, their pitching looks quite nice. I'm going to be honest. I like the things they've done. Now, what's it called? Hyunjin Ryu. Hopefully I didn't mispronunciate that, but I think that he'll end up, he might not end up playing this year. I hope he does. Same thing with Chad Green. I don't know if he's going to play this year. I hope he does. But these are two guys that could definitely be of value to this whole pitching staff in its entirety. But without them, I don't think it's the biggest issue. I mean, they got guys like Alek Manoah. Their starting rotation is phenomenal outside of Jose Barrios. and they're going to have to play him because they traded for him and they signed him.
Yeah, a great addition to their lineup, which might be an under-the-radar signing for most people. That Chris Bassett signing end up going to be paying a big time for this team. He's a great number 3 pitcher to this team. Had a really good year, underrated year, also behind 2 really good pitchers last year on the Mets. And he's definitely going to do it again. That's exactly what they needed. Another guy behind these great 1-2 punch of Alek Manoah and
Gausman?
Kevin Gausman. Thank you.
Of course.
This rotation is something to be scared of, especially the top of, and you just got to hope that the bottom of it is just stays strong enough.
No, I definitely agree, and I think that their bullpen is just as good. They have a lot of names that have been around the league a little bit, but a lot of names of players that have been able to get the job done. They got guys like Adam Simber, Trevor Richards, Tim Mazza, Anthony Bass. I mean, they have guys who will get it done in their, in the middle of that rotation. In the middle of that bullpen. But they also have guys like Jordan Romano, a dude who was able to get 30 saves last year, really be a valuable closer for this team. So I think that this bullpen is going to end up being a very nice supplemental piece to the rest of this starting pitching staff and really to this team.
Yeah, it's hard to see what they added, not only last year, but this year as well, and also during the trade deadline of Whit Merrifield last year too, that they aren't the top team in this division. They have so much talent on all sides of the ball, on the field, and with the bat as well. I
really like this team's fielding ability.
Yeah.
That's a weird thing to say, but having Whit Merrifield at second, having Matt Chapman at third, and even having Bo Bichette at short, I like the way this team fields. And in the outfield, they're going to be good. I mean, Springer's always been a good outfielder. They're going to move him over to right field. Kevin Kiermaier's been a multi-time Gold Glove winner at center field. And you're going to have Dalton Varsho really take over that left field reign and really learn how to become a true outfielder rather than being an outfielder and a catcher and an outfielder and a catcher. I think he'll have a lot more time to really cook in that outfield and become a better overall player because of it.
It's an exciting fielding is an extremely important part of this game, and a lot of people forget about it, but that alone will save runs for them and win them games.
I very much agree. So, Adam, I got to know, what was their record last year?
Last year, the Blue Jays were in second place in the division and were 92-70.
So that's actually pretty interesting because their over-under is at 90.5 this year. And I'm going to be honest with you, Adam, I'm taking the over. I think they're going to win more than 90 games this year.
That's shocking how their over-under is less than what they actually were last year. And,
because they didn't get bad at all.
No,
they didn't lose anybody.
If anything, they improved.
That's what I'm saying. They didn't get worse. They didn't need to necessarily go out there and make the biggest splashiest signing this offseason. Rather, what they did is they took the approach of, we're going to make sure that we go in there, we get quality pieces to supplement an already very, very strong lineup.
I'm definitely taking the over on this one.
I agree. So, folks, that's going to be all for us today. We really appreciate you guys coming out, listening to us. Adam, you have anything that you'd like to say to the folks before we head out of here?
No, I'm all good. Great time here, and do it again.
Well, from us at the Idiots Podcast Studio, I'd like to thank you for coming out. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.